the Soviet scientists. And so there we were, and he immediately caught my interest, and such an interesting looking man. He has a little, a little cap on.
No, just right there's fine, yeah.
I said, do you mind telling me what you do for a living?
Catherine, would you grab my little camera in the corner? I don't mean to interrupt you, hon, but underneath that table is it my little, see my flat, yeah. Would you get a picture of this guy standing in the corner with all this equipment? Because there's nobody in this world will believe.
I know, absolutely, yes. Okay. Now it's your turn for your heart to start
And he takes
beating.
them off.
Yeah, don't pose. We want to see you in all your
She's like, how do you work this
glory.
old-fashioned thing? No, I don't think so.
What is that?
I don't,
Well, let me read the directions.
There you
Lift
go.
for continuous flash. Lift for continuous.
continuous. No, we don't need continuous.
Well,
But don't you have to press a button till it turns red or something?
yeah, I thought so.
Boy, these new old-fashioned things.
Well, just in case I'm going to take your picture.
Oh,
Very
my God,
good.
how did it
It worked. Let's take another one just for...
Turn it full length. What's the matter with you?
Okay, now
Yeah.
it's doing this.
What's it doing?
One-time use camera. Maybe it does that till it's like recharged itself.
Yeah, the light
have
comes
to
on
do
when
the
it's,
little...
Once that little light stops flashing on top,
yeah, its battery's ready.
The flash will be ready.
Okay. That was my theory too. Okay.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, that's the only thing I can have nowadays. But I really wanted to be a photographer. I
Yeah, you
did.
messed
Did
up
you?
a camera recently.
Yeah. Yes. What do you mean recently? I'm like, which
I want
recently?
you guys to be clear. This is my little interlude while we have this moment. That it isn't just being around the equipment. You can talk to a really brilliant guy that lives over at Chatters, Jason, that is just a techno nerd. He just knows a lot of stuff, and I'm not, mind you, but still, I do things like I can type on the computer. I can do simple little tasks, and but if it's associated with her,
Yeah.
if you even think about her, but if it's definitely associated with her,
Really?
I can't explain it. I've had, what was the latest thing with the printer? Or,
I don't know. They all go goofy.
and when I couldn't get it to backspace, and when I couldn't get the number lock to work, and it works fine.
Yep.
Before and after.
Kim can print
But
for
not
anybody,
during.
but not me. She prints something for me, it won't work. And she prints right after that with someone else, it's
Yeah,
fine.
That's right.
But she's,
There
yeah.
This is a techno nerd
Yeah.
in Fawn's cabin
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Jason, this other little
in your living room.
Corla, they'll never believe
Frontal
it.
lens.
What? Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That would have been bad.
It's the simple things.
He was trying to copy some CDs, and he threw them all over here and said, "That's it. Anytime I try to do something for you, my machine goes down. I'm done." He had to replace the motherboard when I was there. He kept saying, "Oh, you can sit right here."
And the disc. He couldn't do the
Yeah,
disc.
that's what he finally. You got all the discs.
I
Yeah,
got
he
the
don't want
disc.
nothing to do with them anymore. He
We
ruins his
couldn't,
machine when
you
he
were
works for me.
burning something, and
Yeah.
he ended up having to put it on a flash drive, and then I had to burn it at my house. That was just last week.
Yeah.
It was an ordeal.
Yeah. So my energy goes with everything. I don't know how. Oh, let's do. Oh, shit.
She was trying to
Outta here.
stealth picture of
See,
you
she's
there.
not smart enough to hit the mirror.
Yeah, well, I'm learning. Keep it
Thanks,
out.
Catherine.
All right.
There we go.
I saw her walking out with the camera in front, and I knew she was up to that one. She's funny.
Yeah, we're
Watch
sorry
that.
we're opening Pandora's box
Yeah.
here. People going to be shooting pictures of you all the time now.
Well, with those kind of cameras, sometimes I was careful because I knew she was going to do that. She's not the smart she likes to be. But yeah, you got to keep adjusting those, or you'll end up sitting on the rim, and it gets owie after a while.
Yeah, I got it.
But with those, it looks, when you take them to get developed, if I'm doing something to it, those look like somebody opened the film in the sunlight.
Yeah,
It just ruins all the pictures.
overexposure.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're not safe no matter where we go, unless I can. Today, I've asked for protection from it.
Well, he'll get started in a little bit here.
I don't care. It's okay. It's very good. Very
Does
good
it feel
about it.
good? Yeah, it feels good to me. It's
Well,
going
yes, of
well.
course.
Yeah.
But He's mellow.
But it's right. It's the important people too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Marco's the only person that I would have entrusted with this.
Mhm.
So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this work is truly in alignment with my mission,
Mm-hmm.
which is
That
really
helps.
very well. No, it's really clear. It's to use media to express consciousness and help the world transform.
Okay. I hope it. Me. I'm doing it because Stanley and Ron want me to. I'm tired of trying to talk to that world out there. They're just plain ignorant.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a challenge sometimes. I mean, my whole career,
Mm-hmm.
which has been a number of different areas, has always been about being a translator.
Mm-hmm.
Always been about being a bridge between different
Mhm.
worlds,
Cool.
right? And so now this is a
Mhm.
whole different experience of that.
Yes.
Well, we'll go ahead and get started here,
All right.
and then Marco will
Catch up.
catch up to us. Fawn, we've already talked a little bit about your childhood, and I know that that's not an area we want to spend a lot of time on, but is there anything else about your childhood that relates to your vocation as a shaman and healer that is worth mentioning?
No, but I do think that moving around and the different experiences of different kinds of people, it's like several countries in one country,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes,
and I think
yes.
that helped me to, not necessarily with my shamanic work, but with people,
Yeah.
and that's where my work is, so,
And you,
That's
in
all
your
I know.
childhood, you moved
oh yeah.
all
moved
over
all
your
over.
highly nomadic reservation
Yes.
life and then
Yes.
other life.
And so we had parents that weren't agreeing about where to be, so my dad kept moving my mother. I'd shut her up. You know, it did. You put her in a new place, she was busy packing and unpacking and scrubbing and whatever comes with moving. Yeah, it was crazy. I don't know.
I wanted to talk about a little bit about your experience of the world when you were a child and how, because you, like you said, you were a little different from early on.
Hmm. Didn't know it, but yeah, looking back, I know it.
As you look back, how did you describe your perception of things? How did you, relate to the trees and, your relatives and that?
Like a kid.
Yeah.
I don't
Which
know.
is
I don't know.
a
It's just
beautiful
life.
way.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're in the light,
Hmm. Okay.
the innocence.
Yeah, just living day to day and never realizing that I was different. I really didn't know it.
Yeah.
I had an awful lot of insecurity and stuff like that that was hard to overcome. Still do, but
Was any of that due to being
uprooted?
mixed blood, or was that more to
More
do
uprooted.
with just constant movement?
Constant movement was the main thing. You never, when you don't have roots, it's a weird life. And the split was real hard for me. I mean, it wasn't hard for me, but looking back, I don't know. I'm glad I was a kid and didn't know any better. Because it probably would have ruined me had I been an adult. No, I don't know. I just...
We talked a little bit about it, your healing gifts, and how they were cultivated a little bit within the tribal community. Can we talk a little bit more about that? You weren't really aware of your healing gifts, but
Right.
you were being taught.
Yeah. I don't know what I was being taught, but I was by being sent out to nature, and I think they were hoping that something would open and I'd get an experience, but I think I was already open all
Already
the
there.
time and didn't. So nothing much changed when I hit the woods.
Did in the tribal settings where you grew up, was there ceremony, or was that something that wasn't?
Some, but not much. Having a white mother and being an outsider, made it a little different.
So they were even close to you in terms of that.
Yeah,
aspect
it
of
was
the
more
tribal-
family than tribe. I don't relate much to a tribe.
To the tribe, yeah.
I didn't stay that long.
And at that time, I think there probably had been such a degeneration of tribal ceremony that even
Yes, there
within the
was.
tribes there was no ceremony, and
That's right.
a lack of ancestral traditions
Mm-hmm.
and so forth, and that kind of made a comeback.
The family thing stayed, you know, the certain foods and different things like that. But no, not. We went mostly. They just leaned toward powwows and the show, the bells and
Get out the costumes and the drums and do it.
yeah. That was.
Um,
There was still things going on, but I wasn't too much involved.
were there? Did you have any access to teaching stories from the elders
Not
at
much.
all?
Not
So
much.
Even that was limited.
My grandma, but you know,
Mhm.
but my mother thought she was a crazy old fool, so I liked her fine.
And your grandma was Mandan?
I think
Or mix? You don't know.
one of them was Shawnee and one of them was Mandan. I don't know.
Okay.
It was something that, see, that was one thing my family, my father and mother didn't want me to become attached to
Okay.
tribal, because you can become an Indian, a reservation Indian real easy, and that's going nowhere.
Yeah.
And they didn't want me in there. So it was a lot of that was just kind of squashed. So that's why I don't have much. I mean, it was there, but I don't know.
Did you have any access to any ceremonial leaders? And if so, was there any sense that, that
Not really.
they were human beings, maybe in a greater sense than others?
Well, I knew who they were, but they were, to me, they were just human beings, but I wasn't involved in their ceremonial parts or anything.
Okay.
But we had real strict rules around them. You never look in their eyes and different things like that, but it was just normal living there.
Just part of growing up there.
Yeah.
Was there any sharing within the tribal settings of the creation myths like we were talking about?
Not much.
So that really, the mythical ritual aspect.
Right, it wasn't part of me then.
There
No,
wasn't
because
much
of my
that
mother.
at all.
My mother wanted me to be a Christian,
Okay. Yeah.
so she kind of squished all that stuff.
So did you go to
Oh, yes.
Bible school?
Oh, I went to everything. The government made you do that.
Really?
And, yeah, you had to go to school, to church. You had to be on the register of the church. They kept a register of all the little Indians. And if you didn't, I think where the tribe I was living, I don't even remember for sure which one, but I remember the incident real well. You had to go once a month. If your name wasn't on the list once a month, then your dad went to jail. And Washoe had to be twice a month. And their dad kept going to jail. They had 6 kids. My husband's family had 6 kids, so they kept skipping church or Sunday school, and he kept going to jail. It took once for me. Just one time not to go. My dad would drive me to this church and drop me off with my brother, and we'd skitter off into the woods. And then come back and get in the car and go home when he picked us up. I didn't know they kept a roll, but I found out real quick when police came after him. So, yeah, that was real little, way back. It was very...
That's pretty amazing to me.
Oh, yeah, we had to go to church. And I was baptized 8 times, because every time we moved, I went to a different church, and they said, well, that didn't count. Different.
Right.
So I'm covered. Somebody will take me in when I move.
You're the only person I met who's been baptized 8 times.
Yes.
Did you find, in spite of, the church authorities, did you connect spiritually in any way to the teachings
Oh, sure.
of Christianity?
I could. It wasn't until I got older that I started questioning some things, and they had no answers. But yeah, I'm kind of whatever I'm in it.
Right.
I'm all the way, and you can't learn anything if you don't just drop everything else and really focus on what.
Present.
Yes, and so I did. you know, Jesus was cool and all of that, but later I found I didn't want to go there anymore. I got my papers. I don't have to go back.
You've been
So.
baptized 8 times, so
That's right.
you qualify for immortality if anyone does.
Can I make just one adjustment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm just gonna, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
I'm gonna move this to the other side
Okay.
because that way it'll be closer to Ron also.
Ah.
And
All right.
moving it.
Okay. Yeah. That's,
Thank you. Okay.
Actually be able to hear my questions?
No, the microphone is very sensitive.
okay.
And then going back to, you know, as you grew older, are there any experiences of your natural healing gifts that stand out prior to that defining moment when the channeler came to you and helped you to see what your gifts were?
They didn't make sense, but yeah. But I didn't put it on me necessarily. I just didn't know. I was baffled by why everything happened the way it did usually. But like the severed artery. The blood. I said, "Oh God, somebody got help!" You know, and it just stopped.
What happened?
It was I don't remember if he got with the. I didn't see it happen. It was either axe or the chainsaw or it was the logger, and they were yelling for medic and hollering for medic. You know, see, I lived in a logging camp for a little while, and of course, my dad had me set in chokers before I was a teenager, and until my mom found out, and then I was put on the greasing the equipment. Oh, but at that time, a logger got hurt, and that's when the first time I saw blood gushing, and I was like, they were screaming for the medics or whatever in the camp, and I was there and closer. So when I got there, I didn't know, I had no idea what to do, but I said, "Oh, God, somebody's got to help," you know, and it just. And I went up and took a hold of him and told him, "It's going to be okay, they're coming," and things like that. And the next thing you know, it just stopped gushing. It just, I didn't do it, okay, but there's something about my presence that,
You were there.
yeah,
You were with him.
and I want it done, so it happens if I want it done. It doesn't happen if I don't ask or think I should be a part of it in some way, you know, just to comfort
there has
him
to
or,
be some
yeah,
intentionality involved in
right. But I had no
healing
idea.
events.
I didn't know. But that's a real vague memory. That was a long time ago.
It's got to be a powerful one there. It's
Nah,
that's
I just took
for
those.
me, that's a very
Well, yeah,
powerful
but
image.
with me, it was just it just happened. I just took things. Yeah, children take things for granted. They don't even really question why or how. It just happened.
And you were still pretty young when that occurred.
Yeah, very. Yes, jumping up and down those logs like a little fool, setting chokers like an idiot. And my mom caught, and then there was a big fight in the house, and I remember her saying, next thing you know, you're going to have her driving one of those darn logging trucks. Well, that wasn't exactly the way she said it, but, and he said, "Well, we've already tried that, but you can't reach the pedals." And then I didn't work in the logging camp anymore. It wasn't long after that we were down the mountain. So she tried really hard to keep me out of my dad's hands. You know, he didn't want me to be a boy. He had a boy. He just knew my potential and used the heck out of me. You know, had a great time with me.
Knew you could be a good truck driver too.
I could
so.
be. Eventually, he got me behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler, but I wouldn't do it now for anybody. I didn't have enough sense to know I could kill somebody with that thing. You know, but I was always pretty good at what I did, so it was cool. Yeah.
The scholar of shamanism, Mircea Eliade, I don't know if you're familiar with his work. He actually wrote a classic in the field called Shamanism, Archaic Techniques of Ecstasy.
Mm.
He
Okay.
described, and he's, you know, like Stanley is interviewed and shamans from all over the world, and one of the things that he found common was experiences of death and rebirth. Can you talk about any of those kinds of experiences in your life either at a literal level or at as a psychological metaphor? Was anything like that involved for you? Did you go through any profound experience where you felt like you were dying? No.
Oh, I learned about ego death, but other than that, now you're going to want details on that. I don't.
Oh, whatever detail you'd like to.
It got out of hand. When they started working with me and convincing me that they were me and I was all powerful, oh my God. Yeah, you can't possibly walk this path without your ego finally taking over and getting blown up. You just can't. I don't think, because if anyone could, I would have. But no, I became all powerful and disguised as compassion, and that I had to have my rug yanked out from underneath me a few times to get me back to being where I should be. But that everybody goes through that.
Yeah, and it is. It's not only for shamans and healers, but it is a process that I think anyone who's continuing to grow has to go through. Can you describe the form in which those crises and those lessons got brought home to you?
Oh, no. I haven't thought about it so long. I don't know. I just remember being on a hand, I mean, changing and being so, I don't know. I became I didn't like me. I don't know.
You identified with the power.
Yes, I guess you could say that. And that's
a common phenomenon. Jung talks about that, the identification with the mana personality. And
yes.
Then life has a way of humbling
Yeah, you
us.
lose your friends, you lose your people. Your people can't stand you anymore, and you wake up and realize what's happened. So.
That maybe you've become someone that you can't even relate to.
Right.
Why do you think that happened? What was the genesis of that in your life? I mean, did it just happen because so many people were coming to you?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I became the big cheese all of a sudden. Boy, everybody wanted to do whatever, and I was in full control, and I don't know what happened. I just kind of got out of myself a little. So, and it's not me. That did not fit well, like a bad pair of shoes. It didn't last long, but it took a while building, that's when things started falling away, or people started falling away,
When you became a rock star.
Yes, and your mate says, I don't know you anymore. It's like, okay, and you don't care. I don't need you, there's plenty of fish in the sea. Your ego just it can be your worst enemy. It really can. But it's learned that it has a place, and it can come out when it needs to. And get yourself back in before you get me in trouble.
You can be confident in your skills without it inflating you.
Yeah. I did the inflation. It didn't. It's no good.
We talked a little bit about this before. We've covered a lot of this, informally in our early discussion today. But did entheogens have any influence in your development as a shaman or not? You just strictly stay
That's a
away
new
from
word.
that. Entheogens are plant medicines.
Oh, no.
You just strictly kept
Yep.
away from that.
Yeah.
It was all natural induction of.
Because it's limited.
Yeah.
It can't go where I have to go. The spirits that walk with the plants have a specific limit that they can take anything. And I have to go past that, so why bother to start with that, to me? Because I looked into it real heavy before I tried it. I did not want to ever lose control of my senses and everything. I'm just paranoid about being out of control of my mind. And even though it'll last for a short time, I don't care. I don't want it.
A lot of healers, for example, in Central America, associate their ability to develop healing and psychic gifts with, use of ayahuasca, for example.
Well, they have to work at it. It's No, I didn't have to ever do that. I found that I go beyond it anyway, so
Yeah, just naturally.
it just get in my way.
Yeah. How about the role, I would assume in your early practice, when you were relying on some of the traditional things.
Oh, all the good stuff, yeah.
What did you learn about the role of use of drums, for example, or chants and
The altered,
rattles and
it
those
does,
kinds
it
of
helps with the
things?
altered state, but not with me,
Yeah. Okay.
because I never got there. It took everybody else, but
Okay.
I
So it's
was
useful
already.
for.
Oh, it's very,
People coming to you.
yeah, it was useful for the patient or the people that were working with me, and because they aren't who I am. But that,
But but for you,
for me,
you
it was
don't
just
need
a
that.
lot of junk to carry around.
Yeah.
I really didn't. I thought I needed it.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I had to do the drum and the chant and the rattles and the, oh my goodness sakes. And then I found out I didn't need to do all of that. But you know, that opened the door to different things that I didn't need either. I had experiences I didn't need because of my stupidity. And stepping in, one experience after another that was totally unnecessary.
Those that you care to talk about, or
Well,
one that may have been particularly important?
one thing is the spirits are not always as they appear, and they're impersonating other. I had a lot of times I was taken and made fool of by the spirit realm because they didn't have the abilities I had, and they would ask me to do it their way, and it messed everything up. And they had, like one lady came from the East Coast and she was a channeler. That just came up. Once that door was open, they just came like crazy. They, everybody, just strangers came in channeling and all. That world of channel was open to me, and I had to experience a lot of it. And we had one lady from the East Coast that had a cracked vertebrae in her back. She had two brothers, both were doctors. One was a surgeon to do backs, but he would not. She was 350 pounds plus, and he wouldn't work on her until she got down to a certain weight. He said it wouldn't do any good to operate on her because her weight, and I don't know, whatever it was all about. But she also, that was, the other spirits brought weird experiences that made my life and my camp exciting, but it was unnecessary. And it put you in the realm of just weird. But she said, we couldn't put her in the sweat lodge, so we had to pick the sweat lodge and set her down and then put the sweat lodge down over her. She was huge. So she had her legs sticking out of the door of the sweat lodge. It was a small, very small, like 4 per piece people, very small. And so I was getting ready to start the ceremony when I was still doing drums, bells, and whistles. And she said, wait, whoever her guides were would like to know if they could work through me. And I, young, dumb, sure, why not? Oh, why not? She said, okay, the first thing to do, and all my women were sitting outside the sweat lodge with no cover on it because they couldn't get in with her. And it was quite comical. And she said, he said there's something wrong with her legs. She limped and she had a cane. It wasn't just her back. And she said there was something wrong with her thigh. And so the spirit that came through her, she was guiding me and telling me, I couldn't see or hear him, she could. And she said, he wants you to pull the bad energy out of my thigh before you start with my back. I said, okay. And then she said, I'm a hollow bone, by the way. That's what they call me. They work through me.
You are.
Yes. And so she saw that I had, or the spirit saw I had a hollow bone on my necklace and asked me to take, it was like a straw, the hawk bone, asked me to take it off and use it as a straw. Well, I don't appreciate, or I have no use for suck doctors. I did. That's just not something I'm into. They get too far out for me. So he's...
I've met a few.
Yeah. You can have them. So he said to take that straw and put it on the bottom of her foot and suck. And I said, no, You tell him I'll hold it. He suck. Because I'm not going to do that. She said, okay, he'll do it your way. So I was told to hold it like that, you know, through my fingers. And no matter what happened, do not move my hand until he told me to, because that could be serious. So I was stuck to her foot, you know, just up against her foot like that. And I put that on the bottom of her foot. And I tell you, good thing he told me not to move no matter what, because that straw disappeared out of my hand into her foot. It just went, and it was out of sight. She couldn't see what was going on. She was inside and kind of leaning back, and she said, whoa, I feel weird. Something's going up my leg. And I just, really? And she said, yes. She said, oh God, it's clear up there where the pain is. And I'm like, oh good. And I'm just freaking. If I had a choice, I would have just left that whole scene. It was just feeling too bizarre. We're like, what am I going to do? It's up. And all the women were like, I don't know, you know. I'm like, oh, what do we do? What do we do? What if this stayed up there? I thought, where did it go? I know it went that way, and I was against her foot. So this was so bizarre. And then all of a sudden, it just came back out and just went right back into my hand. And he said, put it in the bucket of water immediately. So I gladly put it in a bucket of water right there beside me. And out of both ends, you know how steam or mist does, it came and swirled in the water like that out of both ends of it, and it disappeared, whatever it was. It looked like steam. It didn't look like slime or anything. It just looked misty. And she said, my leg doesn't hurt anymore. I said, that's good. So that I won't work with other spirits after that, because they put me in those kind of positions where I'm not responsible for what they do. And that's not something I want to be responsible for, a bone stuck up inside somebody's leg or where. I don't know what happened. She said she felt something go up her leg and she wasn't watching, so I don't know what.
It sounded as bizarre as it is. Apparently was a positive result.
Mm-hmm. It was. Oh yes, she was fine. Yeah. And she found me through a dream. They gave her my name and phone number, and an address, I guess, because she wrote to me and called me. Yeah. Said, can I come from the East Coast? She was from Virginia. Yeah. So.
Is that one of those who came and went, or
yep.
Were you able to stay in contact?
No, she didn't appreciate me. I didn't know, you know, I'd always heard people speak about Italian women and Jewish women. Mm-hmm. They were different. Well, I didn't know how until I met a Jewish woman that weighed 350 pounds with an attitude. Oh, my God. She was quite forceful and in control, and in order to heal her, it took me 4 days to get her ready to put her in that lodge, because she wouldn't let go of anything. And the girls would they'd bring her a meal, and one of the things in my camp was abundance. You know, we always had abundance of everything. It was always good, and they'd bring her a large plate. Well, she was huge anyway, but they'd bring her a large plate of fruit and different things, and she would say very nicely and politely in the beginning, tell your mother this is too much for me, she's wasting food. What she didn't know is it went to the offering and the animals. It wasn't wasted anyway. And each time the message would come back to me, I'd tell the people in the kitchen, I want you to double it today. Every time she'd say it's too much. And then the last time, she finally lost patience and threw the food at them when they came in the door. And my daughter's very calm. Now who's wasting food? So she was very difficult. But she was the one that came with she had 2 suitcases. And we found out one suitcase was full of candy and junk food because she was afraid she was going to be hungry.
Now we know how
That's
she
why.
maintained that bulk.
Yes, and because she had a fear of being hungry, I said abundance. That's what she needs. And so we gave her. She wasn't, you know, she was very angry with me when she got healed because they had bullied her into it, basically. That's all I could do. but I did learn what Jewish women are about. They're different. They are. It's okay. So they.
She was a handful getting her to.
She was very hard.
Open up enough
Yeah.
so that you could even do any work with her.
Right. She came flying in the trailer because after she threw the food, she stomped up. We were in a travel trailer out in the woods then for the kitchen, and I was in there talking to the girls, and she came flying in the trailer and started after me. She was going to tell me a thing or two, and my girls, of course, not as big as her, but they're strong gals, they were, and they grabbed her and told her, no, you're out of here. And she grabbed a hold of the oven handle, took it with her. When they pulled her, it came
Literally.
off. Yes. I get... She also broke our toilet seat, so every time you sat down on it, it would crack. The crack would open, and you go to stand up, and it'd pinch you in the butt. Oh man, she was a problem. So,
No good deed goes unpunished.
yeah, that's right.
The saying.
That's right. Yeah.
Excuse me, just for 1 second.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I'm just going to move this up just a little
Okay.
bit. It's
I'm
okay.
fine, hon.
Yeah, it's a little better.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a great story.
Okay. Oh, that's my world's full of them. But
Would you
okay,
like to
testing.
share another one like that?
The man that owns the property with me was a non-vet. That was a fun one. He had Agent Orange. When he was in Nam, he did not know about the baby killing room message we had over here. They were baby killers, and they, yeah, he had not been informed of any of what America was thinking about them, and he was proud. He was a war hero. He coming home, and when he came home, when all the vets came off the plane, he got excited. He said because he saw all of those people out there. He thought, "Wow, a welcome party. This is great." And what it was, his description of his experience was when we went there, they taught us how to turn our emotions off, but they never taught us how to turn them back on. And he said, I was not aware that I had a problem with he had a problem before he went to Nam, though, I will tell you that. He had a situation where there was love and there was sex, but this shouldn't really be that. This part shouldn't be kept on information. Okay, but so he couldn't mix the two. So he could love me because I was safe. I was his sister kind of thing. He'd love his mother and his sister and me. I think those are the only 3 women he ever loved in his life. But anyway, when he came back and got off the plane, they were screaming baby killer and stuff at him. He didn't know what the heck was going on. And he was looking around to see who they were talking about, and they spit on him, and one woman threw her drink or Coke or whatever on him, and he said, I didn't know how to deal with that. I didn't know what emotion to put on it, because I had just come from the war, and in that case, you would have just went over and broke her neck, because she was acting like the enemy. But he said, I didn't know what to do, so I just ran out of there. And he went into the woods and did not come back. He stayed in the woods. He was terrified he couldn't come to public because he didn't understand what was happening, but he knew that he was on the no-no list for America. And so a lot of the Nam buddies went and got him. He was a hermit out in the Kalmiopsis, and they brought him in and put him in a trailer and kind of brought him back to society. And shortly after that, they brought him to me. And this was a long time that he was out there and hid in the trailer both. And he was surrounded by other vets that kind of cared for him. And they brought him to me because my rule when I'm working with vets, which in Southwest Oregon, there is a tremendous amount of them. And they all were, I wouldn't say paranoid, but they were all programmed in a certain way. They all wore a gun. And some of them even had a big knife, and yeah. So the rule in my camp was, if you wear a gun, you wear it in the teepee. And I had the white world was like, oh my God, aren't you afraid? It's like, he's been here how many years and he hasn't shot anybody yet? And it's on his side all day, every day. What have I got to worry about? I'm more afraid of him without his security symbol than I am with it on him. And so they would come to me because I said you didn't have to leave your gun behind and you didn't have to act any certain way at all. You just go in the dang teepee the way you are. And he went in. When he came out, he said, "Boy, you don't know what happened in there." And I said, "No, I don't, but I'm glad you do." He started working for the camp from that day on. He brought his van over and stayed in the driveway and helped carry the people into the teepee and helped the old people in and out and things like that, he and the man that brought him. And so later I got mad at him. I mean, really mad at him. He had a tendency, because he was kind of emotionless, I guess. He could take advantage of people, and that's okay, but he took advantage of an innocent person that trusted him, and that just was like, I've had it. I don't want anything to do with someone like you. And I told him, I don't want to know you anymore, so I went away. And 3 years later, my medicine helper and I were down in Nevada on the res, and she said, I don't know what's wrong, but I feel like I got to take a nap, which was not her. She laid down, and the next thing you know, she sits up and she says, we've got to go to Oregon. And I said, what the heck for? At that time, we were thinking about buying land for a camp. This wasn't purchased yet, and we didn't know where we were going to go, but she said, we got to go to Oregon, and we got to get a hold of your friend that has the real estate. I said, okay, there's a piece of property by the California line, and the spirits just said, we've got to go there. So we think it's because we're supposed to buy it, which it wasn't practical to buy it at all. It was not good. It would flood and everything, I could tell. But as we're coming back from Nevada, we go past the sign, and that's for sale. And she says, that's it. That's the one they showed me in the dream. So we go and ask the real estate lady, and she says, oh, just go in. There's people staying there, but they know it's for sale, and they'll show you around. So we drove in, and there was some people came, and they started to take us around and show us the property. And there was a bus there. And one of them said, I think you know the guy that's staying in this bus. And I thought, oh, well, maybe. I know a lot. It's a non-vet in the bus. I said, oh, well, so why don't you go say hi? So I stick my head in the bus, and it's this guy, Shadow. And he's sitting in a chair. And at that time, they had told him someone was here to see him, so he was trying to get up. When he was in Nam, he had his arms pulled out of the socket, and they put him back in, but something happened, so he had calcium built up, and were shoving his arms right out. He had no more hardly socket left, so he kind of went like this a lot. He couldn't do his arms, and so he had his arms tied against him and out like this, and they had a man I didn't know was helping him out of the chair. He got out of the chair, and his butt was tucked way in, and he stood like a person whose back is out really bad. And it took him, a few minutes. I'm just standing there going, whoa. And he finally got so he could stand up straight, and then the guy helped him walk over to the door to see me. And I said, what is wrong with you? And he said, my back went. I can't walk anymore. He was shuffling. He wasn't walking. He couldn't lift his feet or anything. And I said, well, why didn't you get a hold of me? And he said, because you're mad at me. And I said, since when did my personal life and my medicine mix? You know better than that. So the guy that had helped him out of the chair owns a motel down here. And so he set it up with, they built a lodge that he could go into for his healing. And the old one said, this man has to earn it. And the night before I went there, I met him the next day, and they said, remember, this man has to earn this healing. He can't, so make him do things. And I'm like, well, like what? What do you do with someone that can't walk? He can't move his arms, And they said, you make him go get the pine tree and make him get a cup of water. Well, I'd never been to this place, so I didn't know where the water was. And it was down this hill, down a path. And so I said, you have to go cut a pine tree. And the men that were there was 2 men there that were helping him walk and stuff. He's a big guy. He wasn't fat then, by the way, he is now. And so they said, we'll go get the pine tree. And I said, no. I said, he has to go find a pine tree at a certain height. And so it was so cute. They're practically carrying him out to the woods. They've got the saw under their arm. They came back with a pine tree. And I said, now you have to get a cup of water. And I'm feeling bad. I
Yeah.
mean, I know he's hurting, but
You got to pass on the instructions.
that's right. So I said, here, you need to go get a cup of water from the stream. And he's looking at me like, okay. And the two guys run in right away and said, we'll do it. And I said, no, I said, he has to do it. So here the three of them are falling down the hill. It's a really steep. And they kick him down and trying to bring him back without spilling. They had about that much water left by the time they got back. And I said, thank you. And I just set the water down. And I said, that one man says, aren't you going to do something with that water? I said, I just did. I didn't know what to do with it. It was the getting that was there.
Exactly.
So he went in the lodge, and they put him in. They did the same thing with him, that they lifted up the lodge and got him down and then put the lodge.
Set it on top of it.
Yes. And he went to sleep, and they just, now these other men had never heard of anything like me in their life. They were, from the White Society.
Guys.
Yeah, and they were just looking at me and watching him sound asleep in there and what is going on. The next thing you know, he gets up and crawls out of the teepee and stands up, perfectly normal. And these guys are just staring at him. They don't know what to do, but he's not back. I can tell he's not done yet. And he says, I have to go somewhere and lay down, like that. And so they tried to help him, and he's like, because he wasn't really there, and he's like, let go of me, what are you doing? He walks up, they put him in a motel room, one of the cabins, and he goes to sleep, and I go home. Before I go home, they both cornered me at the car. And this one boy to me then, but he said, he owned the motel. He says, before you go, I want to ask you one thing. What do you all think of Jesus? And I said, well, Jesus is a good brother, and I'm really glad he's around. We need him. He says, oh, okay. So they left him in the motel. When he came out, he was fine. And what he said was, as soon as I can, I'm going to buy her land for a camp. Because he thought I still wasn't going to talk to him ever again. I mean, I figured it was over. There was no sense in being still mad, but he was going to buy me a piece of land. He bought this land when his parents died, and half of it was in my name for the camp. So his arms were back in, and he's healthy. He's walking. He runs this place just fine. He's the one that he built bridges in Nam, so he knows about heavy-duty anything you build. So he put it up. I mean, showed them how to put it up. But he's gotten fat and lazy, big old belly and stuff now. But he was fine.
That's the story of how this...
Yeah. And he had
Camp
Agent
came about.
Orange. Yeah, he was really a sick man. But anyway, this is how it came about.
through his,
Yes. And I've come and gone and come and gone. He keeps making me mad and I leave. So, but
he appreciated it in genuine terms.
yes, and he kept saying, she'll be back. She's just mad, she'll be back. 5 years later, I'd come back and try again.
Oops, excuse me.
Yeah.
I
Oh.
thought you took the pen back. Did I give it?
I gave it to you.
Did you give it back to me?
If you don't have it, there's one up there behind you that I used.
Let's...
No, over in that little tray. Now, the blue one's a pencil.
There we go. Finally figured out where did that pen go.
Okay, it's probably under you.
That's a great story, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's working the barter fair. He would have been around as well, but he's gone for a week, so.
Marco, do we need to take a break here, or can we just keep going? That was a great story.
It was real. That's all. I just tell you what happened.
Can you talk a little bit about other shamans who you've met who have genuine gifts, and
Yeah.
how your work might be different than theirs? Or do you not know anyone?
I don't know many. I met a lot of wannabes, and I ended up with a lot of jealousy and envy that made it uncomfortable to be around, and so I kind of avoided those. No.
Another aspect of shamanic healing, at least traditionally, is typically associated with use of herbs and things like that.
No, I was afraid of the white world, and accusing me because of how people come out. You never know, and they're liable to say that I did something that I didn't do and sue me or whatever. So I was.
You don't use them as
No.
part of your practice.
Uh-uh.
But did you learn herbology at all as a
No.
young person growing up? So
I didn't need to.
how important is tobacco? And why is it used as a ceremonial gift, particularly with North American tribes?
I was told it was the most sacred herb, and the spirits that worked with me were very concerned about the abuse of it in my camp. And because I have, like, Bindi and people that I love dearly and are wonderful helpers, but I'm not going to tell them they can't smoke to work with me. So I quit using it. I couldn't bring it into a ceremony with people who abused it and didn't treat it sacred, even though she has respect. There's certain addictions that I left alone. So I quit using it a lot.
But traditionally, it's very
Yes, it
important.
is. And yeah.
I already answered this question. I was going to ask you, did you ever take what's commonly called a vision quest? And it sounds like you had a whole series of them.
Yeah, I did, but I didn't.
Day-long, week-long, month-long.
They didn't do a bit of good.
Year-long.
Yes. Yeah.
But for you, it was just living.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
It wasn't,
Right. It was,
going to
yeah.
get some kind of
No, I ended up
a
being
state or
connected to the animals more than anything else. That was all.
Yeah. In that connection, how does that manifest? Do you have a sense of understanding of their language?
Oh, you bet. Yes. I do. And mental telepathy.
Can we talk
They're really
about
good.
that? Because I think that's really important.
What do you
I
wanna-
know that was a theme within some of your stories as well. You've had a lot of animal
A lot of
encounters.
it. Yeah, you live in the woods a lot. That's
Yeah,
what you
that's
have.
what happens. Right?
And that was a lot of it was adult life. It wasn't young much, but I don't know.
Is there just an intuitive sense of understanding what they're communicating?
Yeah, I
Or
guess so.
Do they communicate through different
Well,
actions
you
or
learn all of
postures or-
that. Yeah, of course. You learn when you're around them all the time, you just understand what they're saying with their tail, their ears, or their motions or whatever.
But it's a literal language.
Yeah, oh
that
yes,
they
it
use
is.
to communicate.
Yes, it is.
So there's a consciousness there
Mhm.
that, in terms of Western
Mhm.
science, is not typically attributed to.
Right. And I think a
Other
lot of it
sentient
was,
forms.
the understanding came from the mental telepathy,
Mhm.
because they have it. They talk with their mind a lot.
They talk with their mind to one another,
I don't know, but to me they did.
but they talk to you.
So I imagine it would be to one another. I know they have the tails, the ears, the ruffled feathers, the whatever, but I think they must communicate here too. I don't know.
Can you think of an example of a particularly fun or interesting story in terms of communication with animals for you? Something that was particularly meaningful.
No. All of them? I don't know.
Differentiate.
It's just so, it's so much just common to me.
Natural part
Yeah.
of being.
You bring up these, I never thought of that. I don't know. I just take things for granted and just flow with it. I don't know. I'm not a very good person to interview about certain things.
No, that's good.
Well, I think you'll get a lot of that out of the stories, probably.
Okay.
Trying to define different things. I
So-
tried hard.
So in the stories, you tell some of your animal stories.
And how they
Okay.
acted and what they did. Like every time the coyote peed on my stuff, I figured the other coyotes could tell by the scent which one did it, where I couldn't. I just knew one of them. It was one of the males. So things like that, I questioned a lot of things and watched, but I never really got to the depth that they are because my senses weren't as good as theirs.
I think I came across a title. You had some encounters with a wolf.
Many.
With many.
Many.
Yeah. Could you talk about that? That's one of my favorite subjects.
I had several right here on this property, by the
Did
way.
you?
Because,
Wolves here?
yes, Southwest Oregon is known for breeding hybrid wolves.
Oh,
And they
okay.
escape, so mine were mostly hybrid, which makes it much easier to work with because they understand people a little differently than a wild one. And so, I mean, I had wild ones too, but they weren't as, and they find me. If there was one anywhere loose around here, eventually it'd be in this camp. I don't know how they know, but they love to mess
But
with
they would
me
come here.
and play with me. They have a sense of humor that matches mine, I tell you. But, yeah,
A little bit of a trickster.
oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't think so. No, playful, but not,
Playful, but
yeah.
not trickster in the traditional sense.
Yeah, more like they put the coyote in. And those I have too, but yeah, animals just find you and they know. I don't know how they know. But when I lived way, way in the back of the property back here where you have to be a four-wheel to get to me, we had one wolf there that was an escapee, and he was a very young, barely adult. So he was curious about me because I was back there in the woods all by myself every day, and I could see him watching me from the bushes, but I just ignored him, and I would sit outside on a pillow and write. And I went in the trailer, and I came back out, and my pillow was gone. And I was like, this is weird. And so I started wandering around looking to see where it went. I knew there was no wind. I didn't know where it went. And there was this wolf at the edge behind this one tree, at the edge of the forest where the clearing started, laying on my pillow. And as I came near, he took off. So I got my
Your
pillow,
lounge.
mine, and I put it back. And then I started writing again and paying no. Of course, I always have my windows and doors wide open in the summer. I don't close them at all. And out of the corner of my eye, I did not see that wolf go in that trailer. I don't know how he did it, but I saw him come out with my other pillow in his mouth. And he had wolves have a place they have a cache. They put their stuff that they steal.
Their stash. Huh?
Yep. And he took that pillow right back over. Well, I finally got him his own pillow. And it was just, but he didn't come close, but he came close enough to be friends. And when Billy left, he had gone to some fair, and he found a place that they bent forks, and they had one tine that it balanced on one on top of another fork, and you could spin it. He left that on the stump out in the front yard when he left because I was still in bed. And that day, the wolf discovered it, and he was a little thief. And so I heard it clank, and I knew that he was stealing my forks. And I went out there, and I had never, ever yelled at him or done anything, but that was a no. And he dropped it and took off and sat a ways and just sat there and looked at me. So I put it on the stump, and I spun it, and then I'd laugh, and I'd say, see, and I'd spin it. And he kept getting closer and closer and watching that. He was so intrigued with that. And he'd sit there and tip his head like a puppy, you know. And the next day I was in the house, and I heard it clink. And it was a different sound than when he'd grabbed it the first time. And I looked out, and I could see that he was trying to spin that and had knocked it off. So I came out and I said, I'll show you. He went away, you know, and he watched, and I put it back on, and I said, see, you push it right here. And I started trying to teach him how to spin this. And I did it several times, and he kept getting closer and closer and watching, and he'd laugh with me. You could just tell that was fun, you know. And he learned to spin it.
Did he?
Yes, and he didn't steal it. He did learn how to spin it. He knocked it a lot, but he was a clumsy pup, and he figured it out that if he did it a little bit easier, it wouldn't fall off. And he actually,
With his paw? Or
no,
with
his nose. With his nose, he just pushed it. And he was, and I then,
Sorry.
Yeah.
I love
Well,
it.
I twisted my left, well, no, I bent my left knee backwards. That was in a spiritual battle I don't even want to talk about. Okay, but I ended up with a physical ailment from that, and so I was laid up for 8 weeks in that damn trailer in the summer. I was like, oh. And the guys would come and bring me water and check on me every day, and I didn't have crutches, and I couldn't hop because it hurt too bad to hop. So I'd sit on my butt and scoot to the bathroom and scoot everywhere. I'm very stubborn. If I'm going somewhere, I'm going. And so I'm back there, and I kept hearing him outside, and the windows in that were higher than this place, so I couldn't talk to him very much. But I'd talk through the window and say, no, I miss you, but I can't come out. And then one day I heard his claws. I didn't have a step coming up into my trailer because I believe in being limber and not getting old and fuddy-duddy. So I jump up in and out of my trailer, and they all thought I was crazy. But I heard his claws on the floor. He was coming in the trailer to see where I was, and I could barely see his tail, but all of a sudden there was this vicious growling, I mean really vicious growling in the kitchen.
Stuff.
Yeah. So I start scooting down the hall to see what the heck he's growling at. I mean, he's in my trailer raising heck out there in the kitchen. And what had happened, he jumped up in it and he saw his reflection in the oven door. It was a black glass. And he was, yes. So when he saw me scooting down the hall, he ran out. And so he stood outside, he looked in the door, and I kept opening the door, and he'd come up like he was going to come inside and get that sucker, but he'd look, and it was nothing in there. But he learned the sound of the spring, so every time I'd open that door, he would come charging into that doorway. He knew he was going to catch that wolf sooner or later.
That
Yeah. That was really cute, but...